over the holiday, I have been extremely under the weather with what I guess was the beer bug. I didn't even know if what I really thought about the existence of the thing, but this is the closest I've ever come to actually having it, and so did the family. We had it the week before Christmas, and I listened to, in that time, a bunch of podcasts that normally I just might listen to 5-minute clips of. And so, yeah, here it goes.
Here it starts. Here we go.
Here it begins. So I wanted to do a review of one or more of those shows. The one that I'm starting with today is the Michael Knowles on Word on Fire Bishop Barron podcast. It was an interesting one. It was also quite digestible. I like listening to Michael Knowles. He's a very polished speaker, and he has a lot of overlapping views as a trad Catholic, and of course we're friends. So his answers on Bishop Barron were really good, and I have some commentary on a lot of them. I don't know how many of you heard this podcast that Bishop Barron published about a week before Christmas, but it was worthwhile. There was another one Trent Horn that did on Lila Rose's show. I listened to this when I was sick, and I made a joke the other day. It didn't help my headache. Both of them were saying things about I guess it was anti-Semitism, Christian anti-Semitism, that I thought were really missed the mark. But I didn't know if I wanted to do a full-scale response after having heard it. Sometimes when you want to do a commentary, you go and you listen to the given subject matter, and you're like, definitely I want to do it. And then other times you're like, I don't even know why, but I don't want to. The obvious reason that would crop up is, well, there's nothing to really respond to. They said things I all agreed with. But sometimes, as in the case of the Horn-Rose thing, they're still saying stuff that predictably I knew I would disagree with, but there wasn't enough specifics or something. I don't know. Maybe I'll end up getting around to it. But I'll say this as a preliminary thought. When Michael Knowles was interviewed by Bishop Barron, there's enough. They're talking about pretty much stuff that I'm very interested in, Catholic Republic type stuff. And a couple times I thought Knowles was going to mention the book because he used to be a big fan. And they were talking about such things as liberalism's origins, which is a big topic nowadays, and Catholicism. Where does it fit with so-called classical liberalism, post-liberalism? I say it fits with neither, and why or why not? And they made mention of the Regensburg Address, which is I think a very big, important document, most important document of Benedict's pontificate, and its real role is the centrality of Aristotelianism to the West. And people kind of miss that a lot. And, in this hour-long interview with lots of good moments where both MK and Bishop Barron are talking about epistemological optimism throughout. Lots of good comments by Knowles, some decent comments by Barron, but there's still some on each of the main topics they covered. I think they missed the mark a little bit. And so I'll say exactly how I think they did, but overall, it's a decent interview you should go listen to, and I like Knowles a lot. I have my disagreements with Barron, so I guess I'll just take it one at a time. Now, they mentioned this idea of epistemological optimism, and they mentioned in the context of William F. Buckley, the idea that within the framework of a conservative politics, real truths can be known. There are pole stars. You can know what is good from a conservative framework. You can know what's bad. We don't always have to recalibrate each era and simply have a relative politics where we're responding to, of course, we don't just want to respond to the progressives in our own era. There would be nothing fixed within that politics. And that is what real conservatism should stand for. I found, and of course, Knowles talks about this a lot, and it's an effective. He's effectively made it a fixture of the things he cares about and the things he talks about on his show, and I think he's done so in a very cogent way. I'll say this though, as regards being a Roman Catholic, liberalism, post-liberalism, classical liberalism, and what, where Catholics are supposed to come out with regard to post-liberalism and classical liberalism, folks run from epistemological optimism. And they have since, for the last 6-7 years, since the post-liberals came out and kind of scared everyone. So I want to talk about this a little bit. Epistemological optimism, in the terms of Knowles and Barron and William F. Buckley, just means, you can know things. We don't have to run from declaring in a kind of bold, masculine voice that conservatives ought to be able to say, this is a conservative principle. X, Y, Z is a conservative principle for all times. And what I think both of them, Knowles read Catholic Republic like before we first became friends, so 6-7 years ago, at I think the urging of Patrick Coffin, and he loved it. And I think he left the sunny shores of Catholic Republic for more of a post-liberal view of the world. And I've never identified as a classical liberal. Of course I wouldn't. I'm against classical liberalism and post-liberalism. And so I think that his view ends up being, he and Barron together are saying, well, I'm somewhere between a classical liberal and a post-liberal. And I think, end up trading in their stars as epistemological optimists, insofar as they felt like, well, I don't know what we can really identify as the correct view with regard to liberalism. Now, here's something important. If you don't care about this debate, it begins like this. Is liberty a good thing? Catholics always have to say yes, but we have to define liberty correctly. Liberty means an ordered freedom, the right to pursue the good. It's not an unordered freedom, meaning that's license. Liberty, freedom for its own sake. That's way off, and we never affirm that. Okay, so that's the first thing. But liberty is a good thing when you get Catholic post-liberals talking about liberty as a bad thing, as a liberal thing, then I think we're automatically off on the wrong foot. I would say this about liberalism and Catholicism. The classical liberals are the folks, and Knowles and Barron were quick to identify this, the folks that ceded too much to the inherent goodness of freedom, unspecified, whether we're talking about an ordered freedom or a non-ordered freedom. And so classical liberal thinkers like Rousseau, Locke, people toss in Hobbes there, and many others, Enlightenment thinkers, are, it's not Catholic, right? Because Catholicism means liberty is always good, but liberty is always ordered. Now, the group that has made the most hay out of identifying all freedom as what we actually know is license are the post-liberals. And Knowles in the interview does mention, Knowles or Barron, I forget who it is, mentions Patrick Deneen, whom I've debated. I debated on a podcast 7 years ago. All liberty is not license. Liberty and license are opposites. And all freedom is not unordered freedom. Ordered freedom is good and must be. It's basically a Protestant heresy to say that human freedom is bad just because it can technically be spent bad. So the post-liberals end up being against all forms of liberty. They end up being against all forms of any form of limited government, really. They say big government is good, and it's the really Catholic way of viewing the world. And they completely shun the Catholic first political principle of subsidiarity. They completely shun the Aristotelian concept of amity and concord. These three ideas, amity, concord, subsidiarity, all stand for the notion of the fact that a club must be kept small to be kept pure, and pure to be kept small. And that it is a natural law precept that polities need to be small enough to be ideologically pure, at least, and they need to be ideologically pure enough to be kept small. So this basically means that because Aristotle endorses the ideas of amity, meaning people in a polity should love each other and should be alike, therefore they should have this concept of concord. They should all be alike. Diversity is fake. Diversity is fake. It's not a principle of good polities. It's a principle of corrupted, evil political governance. We use the term today that Pius XI crafted out of Aristotelian concord called subsidiarity, meaning it's got to be government. For it to pass the natural law, your polity has to be small enough to be all one type of person, all one type of, trad Catholic. And it must be pure enough to be kept small. They keep each other small that way, You're not going to have a nation of a third of a billion people that all are true citizens together, that agree about anything important. And that's what we have. We live in a nation of a third of a billion. It's absurd. As a matter of fact, Aristotle said that 100,000 citizens is too much for any true good polity. And this seems to be accepted and onboarded by Pius XI in Quadragesimo Anno and Leo XIII in Rerum Novarum, because they're drawing out of this Aristotelian and Thomistic tradition, which is, hey, polities are good, polities are univocal, they don't have pluralism. So what I'm saying is both classical liberals and post-liberals, the post-liberals who say they're the true antithesis of liberals, and they'll never define what liberalism is, aside from the fact that they vaguely identify all of liberty with all kinds of freedom, ordered and disordered, which is wrong. They both do something that is a no-no from a Catholic position. Both of these are positions that a Catholic, they're political economies that Catholics must reject, both classical liberalism and post-liberalism. They want large, pluralistic republics that usually relate to one another by a system called virtual representation. You're represented virtually in the Congress, even though you're really not. Instead of having a polity that's small and natural enough, the way Aristotle and St. Thomas wanted, it's small enough to be like, hey, you could show up at town meetings if it's a republic polity, if it's an aristocracy, just one of the leaders, the few leaders will, or if it's a monarchy. They're all kind of polities in the sense of they should all be small, and they should all truly represent you, not merely virtually represent you. That's the most you can do when your polity is like America, basically a half a hemisphere large and a third of a billion people large. This is absurd, because what a res publica is a political self-identification whereupon the people are truly sovereign because they all have grabbed onto one thing, one res publica that they all believe in, and there's no diversity between them on these grounds, and they're ideologically very pure. And therefore, because if you're going to be ideologically pure, there can't be many people like you. It's got to be a small grouping. And you kind of have to know, or at least be capable of knowing, everyone in your polity as well, which is why Aristotle says even 100,000 any given American city is too large to be a true polity.